The movie begins on the day of the highly anticipated wedding between Tewkesbury and Enola. Everything goes normally until Enola is running late. She knows this day will mark a major turning point in her life, because after spending years trying to be worthy of the Holmes name, she would finally stop carrying it to form a new family alongside the man she loves. However, far from worrying about that change, she is completely convinced that Tewkesbury is worth any sacrifice. As she walks toward the altar, a mysterious man appears behind her. It is Dr. Watson, who gives her news that completely changes the course of that day. Sherlock, her brother, has vanished without a trace. Hearing those words, Enola remembers how this whole story began. Although she occasionally collaborated with Sherlock to solve cases, she always dedicated her weekends to spending time with Tewkesbury. With the passing of the years, their relationship grew stronger until one day he proposed to her. The news spread quickly throughout London and became the talk of the town, though the only one who didn't know yet was Sherlock. When he finally found out, he agreed to walk his sister down the aisle, though he never agreed with the wedding being held in Malta, as he distrusted the place. The night before the wedding, Sherlock notices the suspicious behavior of an officer and decides to secretly follow him to find out what was happening. Before leaving, Enola asks him why he left the table so suddenly. Sherlock, with a serious tone, replies that she is better off being a Holmes and that she is making a decision that could bring fatal consequences. Those would be the last words Enola would hear from her brother before his disappearance. The next morning, Enola and Watson carefully search Sherlock's room for any clues. After checking every corner, they discover several pieces of evidence that lead them to a mirror where the word host is written. Both are convinced that it was Sherlock who left that message before disappearing. Without wasting time, Enola leaves to let Tewkesbury know that Sherlock won't make it to the wedding. However, on the way, she runs into the same officer her brother had followed the night before. Immediately, a chase begins through the streets of Malta. The man ends up gravely wounded by a gunshot, and before dying, only manages to utter one word: "Brath." With this new clue, Enola continues investigating, but while following a suspicious trail, she mistakes a silhouette in the shadows and accidentally hits Tewkesbury. He already knows Sherlock has disappeared, though he never imagined that would be the real reason she was late to her own wedding. Understanding that she will never stop searching for her brother, he decides to end the relationship and wishes her luck in her search. Enola, heartbroken, accepts the decision and convinces herself once again that perhaps her destiny was always to remain alone. The next day, a fire consumes Tewkesbury's house. Enola runs desperately to rescue him, and upon arriving, discovers the front door was forced open. Although she manages to get him to safety, she notices that Tewkesbury's mother has vanished, immediately realizing she has been kidnapped. Later, while receiving medical attention alongside Watson, she talks with Tewkesbury and promises to find out who is behind the kidnapping of both his mother and Sherlock. He tells her the last thing he remembers before the attack, and by linking it to Sherlock's last words, Enola begins to formulate several theories that finally lead her to some mysterious metals. At that moment, a stranger appears and attacks her without warning, forcing her to defend herself. After an intense confrontation, the man reveals that a woman was responsible for everything that happened. He says his name is Mikel Missy, a reformist fighting for a free Malta, who is also investigating the conspiracy. However, before he can explain more details, the police arrive at the scene and Mikel is forced to escape. Later, at the police station, Tewkesbury appears alongside the sergeant and manages to get Enola released. Outside, the streets are full of people celebrating Carnival. While watching the parade, Enola spots a dress identical to the one she found in Sherlock's room and decides to follow the woman wearing it. It is Adeline Rat. When she finally manages to catch up to her, a gunshot ends the woman's life. Before dying, Adeline warns her that she will share the same fate. After analyzing everything that happened, Enola reaches a disturbing conclusion. The person pulling all the strings is Moriarty, who has been trying to assassinate her from the very beginning. Furthermore, She discovers that Sherlock is still alive and that Moriarty managed to locate him thanks to the public announcements of her wedding, using that event as part of her plan. In the middle of the confrontation, Enola's mother unexpectedly appears. After an explosion that sows chaos, Moriarty manages to escape once again. Her mother explains that she had traveled to Malta with the intention of attending the wedding, but couldn't contact her because she remains a woman wanted by the authorities. Before parting ways, she offers valuable advice on facing Moriarty and warns her that she is fighting an enemy far more dangerous than she imagines. Later, Enola tells Tewkesbury everything she has discovered about his mother's and Sherlock's kidnapping. During the conversation, both begin to heal the wounds left after the cancellation of the wedding. Tewkesbury confesses that he doesn't intend to let her face all of this alone and decides to accompany her until the end. Together, they take refuge in a beach shack where they share an emotional, romantic moment that reminds them why they fell in love. That same night, Enola finally explains the real reason she was late to the wedding. Tewkesbury understands her decision, and both leave their resentment behind, strengthening their relationship once again. Meanwhile, elsewhere, Moriarty observes her two prisoners, Sherlock and Tewkesbury's mother. With a smile, she makes it clear that every single event that occurred up to that point was part of a carefully prepared plan from the beginning. The next day, Enola continues determined with her investigation. While analyzing all the clues gathered so far, her mother appears with the intention of helping her. However, Enola makes it clear that she needs to solve this case on her own. Even so, Tewkesbury steps in and reminds her of a detail they had overlooked. The woman who died was Moriarty's spy. Trying to remember who she was talking to before she died, they both link the case back to the mysterious medals found earlier, so they decide to visit Tewkesbury's godfather looking for answers. When they arrive at his residence, the man tries to avoid the subject and warns them that there are secrets that should have never come to light. While he speaks, Enola takes the opportunity to inspect the place and finds an old notebook full of military records and confidential notes. Looking through it, they discover a shocking truth. Years ago, during an expedition in Afghanistan, British soldiers plundered a massive gold treasure hidden in a sacred temple and, by order of the crown, secretly transferred it to Malta, where it remained hidden for decades. Tewkesbury's godfather ends up confessing that he fought in that war alongside the young man's father. Gradually, all the pieces begin to fall into place, and Tewkesbury discovers with horror that it was his own father who led the plundering of the temple. That revelation completely changes the image he had of him, as he realizes that his family's fortune was built on a crime committed against an innocent people. After analyzing all the information, Enola reaches an important conclusion. Moriarty never wanted to assassinate her because she suspects that Enola is the only person capable of finding the gold's hiding place. Everything that happened from the start, including Sherlock's kidnapping and the manipulation of every clue, was part of an elaborate plan to use her as a guide and lead her straight to the treasure. With the truth finally uncovered, Enola designs a strategy to catch Moriarty once and for all. To achieve this, she must first make her believe that her plan has worked. Following the clues from the notebook, she reaches an ancient cave hidden among the cliffs of Malta. After overcoming several obstacles, she finds the legendary treasure stolen decades ago. Just as she had anticipated, as soon as she leaves the cave, Moriarty appears, accompanied by several of her men. The villainess demands that she hand over all the gold, and Enola agrees to negotiate, but sets one condition. First, she must tell her where Sherlock is. Moriarty, true to her nature, snatches the treasure without fulfilling her promise and keeps absolute silence. At that exact moment, Tewkesbury appears accompanied by several reinforcements. An intense clash between both sides then begins. In the midst of the chaos, Moriarty manages to escape once again, but Enola is not about to let her get away. Without a second thought, she goes after her, and after a long chase, she manages to catch up to her. The two engage in a fierce fight, in which Enola ends up prevailing thanks to her wit and determination. After defeating her, Enola reaches the place where Sherlock is held prisoner. Seeing her, He doesn't think of himself first, but instead asks her to free Tewkesbury's mother as soon as possible, and Enola manages to break his bonds. But just when it seems everything is over, Moriarty reappears armed and takes control of the situation once again. While Moriarty threatens and makes Enola suffer, Sherlock manages to free himself completely. Consumed by rage, he is about to end his enemy's life. However, Enola begs him to stop, reminding him that their family has always fought for justice, not vengeance. When the tension reaches its peak, Tewkesbury's mother unexpectedly intervenes and strikes Moriarty with a stone, knocking her unconscious and putting an end to the confrontation. With victory secured, Moriarty is arrested and taken to a maximum security prison where she can no longer manipulate anyone. For his part, Tewkesbury makes the decision to return the gold to its rightful owners, putting an end to an injustice that had remained hidden for generations. At the same time, his godfather is also arrested for his involvement in covering up the theft, and for all crimes related to that conspiracy. The next day, Enola has an emotional conversation with Sherlock. He thanks her deeply for everything she did to rescue him, and acknowledges that he never would have escaped without her. Furthermore, he doesn't hesitate to praise her intelligence and bravery, assuring her that she has even proven to be a better detective than him. Finally, he reminds her that the Holmes name represents everything she has proven to be. Moved by his words, Enola talks to Tewkesbury and proposes that once married, they both keep their respective last names as a symbol of equality and mutual respect. Tewkesbury, laughing, replies that in that case, his name will become Tevity. Although the comment is strange and funny, they both share a laugh that breaks the tension accumulated over so many days. Finally, the moment they had been waiting for so long arrives. The ceremony is not as big or luxurious as they had originally planned, but it turns out to be much more special, because now they both know everything they had to overcome to get to this moment. Enola's mother is in charge of joining them in marriage. In front of their family and friends, they exchange their vows with total sincerity and seal their love with a kiss. And that's it. See you in the next part.